I'm absolutely honored to be standing up here this morning with just such an amazing group of leaders. This is, I think, my fourth Next in a row getting a chance to speak. I always tell people the easiest job at Google Next, moderate a panel of really smart people, ask questions, and get out of the way. So that's what we're going to do here this morning. We're going to go through some introductions, and we are going to talk about a topic no one has heard about yet, which is AI. But all jokes aside, we're going to be talking a little bit differently than how you might have heard a lot of sessions earlier this week, or what you might be used to in your normal information overload of AI. Those sessions are very often about technology. They're very often about the new gadgets, the new gizmos, the new demos, the new things to wow us. Those are all super important. We're going to talk today about the application of those and how to actually start getting value out of that. We're going to talk a lot about AI, but there's three things I want you to listen for today. And it's a word that starts with A, and it's going to happen, you're going to hear it before the words AI over and over again. And I want you to think about these three things. And it's not agents. We're going to talk a lot about agents, but the three words are not agents. Those words are applied. Those words are autonomous. And those words are actionable. That last word is almost the most important word because ServiceNow, Google, and Workday are applying AI, they're making it actionable, and they're making it autonomous. And that is the key to unlocking value here. So we're going to talk about a paradigm shift. But we're going to talk about those three letters, those three words that begin with the letter A, and hopefully it's a good session. We'll have a little bit of a Q&A at the end. We'll be lingering a little bit afterwards to have side conversations if you're interested, and we'll be around all week. So thank you so much for coming, and we'll start with some introductions. I came up with that this morning, so we're all good. So actually, I probably should have started myself. My name is Seth Siciliano, and I have the pleasure of running one of our ISV partnership teams here at Google Cloud. Like I said, I've been at Google. I've been at, I think, every Google Next. I've been here a long time, but this last couple of years leading partnerships with technology companies has been the most fruitful of mine, and so I'm happy to be here. I'll go with Dr. Arsanjani. Would you like to go next to introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about yourself, your role at Google, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Seth. Ali Arsanjani. I lead applied AI engineering. Notice that the applied was one of the words that's why I'm on the panel, because I had that in my title. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invited me. So thank you, Seth. So in applied AI engineering, what we do, we're part of the product engineering team. And we work with yourselves, our customers, and partners to bridge the gap between what our products do today and what you would like it to do tomorrow, because there's such an acceleration, right? It's like you're taking a curve, and that centrifugal force is kind of like taking us away. So we're never quite on what we need. We're always trying to catch up in the AI world. So I lead a team of black belts, quote unquote, Gen AI black belts, who work with our partners and customers and make these things happen.
Thank you, Ali. Andy?
I'm Andy Maxwell. I'm Workday CTO. And does anyone not know who Workday is? Okay. So we are a system of record around people and money and healthcare. We do supply chain, student for higher ed. We are a cloud-native platform, 20 years old. We power many of the joint clients that are here today, specifically around HCM and financials, including Google. And we have been not just building applications and traditional things, but this data that we have, because it's a system of record around people and money, so it directly affects people's lives and their pocketbooks, companies' success. We have a massive amount of clean data and a massive amount of structure and policies and controls to build agents. So one of the things my team is very focused on is building those agents. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk to you, one person who is unaware of who Workday was, so thank you.
Thank you, Andy. John?
So my name is John Aisien. I'm part of the ServiceNow product and engineering leadership team. The word applied is not in my title, so I felt really what's the right word? A strong inferiority complex being here. But I did better than that. I hired an applied AI forward deployed engineering leader. So levity aside, I run the ServiceNow forward deployed engineering team. There's a lady who's actually ex-Google Cloud called Miku Jha who runs that team for me. And what we do is we take ServiceNow building blocks, we combine them, and they're actually not all agentic building blocks, I might add. Some of them are, but in general, we like to use the right tool for the right business requirement. We combine that with third-party building blocks, in many instances actually Workday, Vertex AI, things of that ilk. We combine that with customer-developed building blocks built on LangChain, whatever else. But the key outcome, our North Star goal, is to essentially drive business outcomes, or for public sector agencies, drive organizational outcomes using a combination of that, if you like, brew of stuff that we assemble from multiple IP providers.
Thank you, John. Okay. We'll get into the fireside chat. Like I said, we'll have Q&A at the end. I thought we'd start off with a little bit of a discussion about data. There's a well-known phrase, your AI is only as good as your data. Ali, maybe we'll start with you, but how does Google's data-first AI architecture really help companies like ServiceNow and Workday, but our joint customers, really handle data fragmentation and start to think about how to build in a successful AI strategy?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is that you typically want to create a semantic layer in your enterprise, which takes all the different disparate data sources that you have, the structured, unstructured data, knowledge graphs, et cetera, and create some kind of an ontology, some kind of a metadata layer that you can have your agents access. Because if your agents or your AI single agent system, multi-agent system doesn't have access to the right data, obviously we started doing retrieval augmentation back a couple of years ago, and retrieval augmentation augmented things considerably, but then we needed post-generation grounding. So once the model does something, you have to go and check to see if that's a hallucination or not. So we at Google are obviously good at search. So we have post-generation. We search for the results. We have citations that we can bring in to determine whether that was not hallucinatory.
Yeah.
So people can actually check it. And so from that perspective, you have pre-generation grounding, post-generation grounding. But as you're doing things in real time, you need to accrue that semantic layer. This comes from data, to Seth's point. And the data resides in multiple places. You need to pool them together. You need to streamline the data. And of course, at Google, we have a variety of data products that we help massage the data, refine the data, create that data refinery so that that semantic layer can function well, so that we can then supply the agents with information at runtime to do their job properly.
Wonderful. John and Andy, I mean, I know well, and it's been public knowledge that both Workday and ServiceNow have strong data integration and data partnerships with Google Cloud. Maybe, John, we start with you. How does that data partnership begin to support the strategy at ServiceNow as it relates to integrating and building with us?
Yeah, absolutely, Seth. And I'll start by saying it's not often that enterprise software vendors like ServiceNow publicly admit this, so I hope this is not career limiting. But we are a system of record for some of the workloads that customers depend on us for. Service management, operations management, security incident response, et cetera. But in a typical organization that's a ServiceNow customer, and there's about 14,000 of them, if you actually model the subset of data all up that can support AI that ServiceNow is the SOAR for, it's a pitiful 4%. So for us, maximum data reachability is not just a nice to have, it's a prerequisite. And the relationship that we have with Google, both the technical as well as the commercial relationship, is a representation of that criticality. So as an example, zero copy, or essentially a way to reach data without necessarily replicating that data in ServiceNow. That's a fantastic integration that we have with Google BigQuery. That's just one example of how we maximize data reachability within our customer base. The goal is use every form factor. Think about a Swiss Army knife for data reachability maximization. You might want to stream the data. You might want to copy it and replicate it in your sort of persistence layer. I won't go through every single one of them. But the goal is to have the right blade for the right use case and to take advantage of that blade at the kind of level of atomicity of the use case. So that's thing one. The other point that I'd like to make around data is it's not just reaching all the data that drives reasoning or insight or action. It's also ensuring that there's maximum degrees of freedom in terms of the clients that are taking advantage of that ontology even, that Ali talked about earlier. And so that's another step that we're really excited to take. I really hope that there'll be emerging standards in the space beyond just MCP, A2A, and A2UI that would enable customers' existing clients to then take advantage of that ontology that's already hopefully taking advantage of maximum data reachability in the back end. So that's how we think about it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Andy, Workday?
Yeah, as you were talking, Ali, I had an interesting observation. I think that where we see agents most powerfully able to act on data is when it is not structured on an ontology. If it's truly structured, you can use deterministic logic and you can filter and slice it and everything. And then we quickly run into a wall where it's like, well, we don't have the context for it. I find that using agents on that uncertain space is where it really, really kicks in. So one of the things we did was we built this, we call it Data Cloud, which, well, it's built in Apache Iceberg. It just allows you to have zero copy access to see that data set around people or money or the other areas. So that way an AI agent you can get into BigQuery, you can do the analysis. I think it's going EA middle of next month. But there's huge, huge data sets of incredibly clean data because it ties to people's money and lives. And AI does a fantastic job of looking at that, but I think it's really the uncertain areas where it's fantastic.
Yeah. Excellent. So I love controversy. That's what makes a panel fun. I completely agree with you. The semantic layer I'm referring to is at metadata level.
Yeah.
So you still have access, exactly like you said, to the uncertainty, to the unstructured data directly, or to the structured data. But the ontology guides the agent so that it lessens the probability that it goes down false paths, or, right? So from that perspective.
Yeah, it's like any manager can make the right decision if they have all the data.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Good managers can do it if they have limited data. Nobody has perfect data, but that also implies that the perfect manager can operate in total ignorance. But yeah, I think if we can get, obviously, better data, better context to these agents, the better. And it has to be across the entire enterprise. Nobody owns the full dimensionality of work. And also, I hate to say it, but as a back office provider for most organizations, the real action of all these companies is outside of our systems.
Yes.
And that's where Google really comes into play.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And I think, if you don't mind, I'm doing your job for you just for a second, Seth. I hope that's okay.
I told you, I just need to get out of the way, John, so just keep going.
But I do genuinely believe that we, if you like, asset providers, if you like, we need to do a better job of creating economic incentives for us to share our wares. That's just my instinct. I feel like we're the store for some stuff, you're the store for others, you're the store for others. But then we all have metadata layer. We have derived insights arising from that metadata that's our own IP. And if we can find a way to collectively bring together all that stuff for customers' benefit, but in a way that aligns with our respective business models, I think that's a utopia, at least one of the dimensions of utopia that I hope arises from this agentic era.
Yeah.
Where we monetize at the experience layer, we monetize at the workflow layer, but we also monetize at the raw metadata and derived insights layer.
Yeah. One of the things I think that is kind of thematic for this conversation and really this week at Google Next is moving from kind of maybe wave 1 or wave 2 of generative AI over the last couple of years, which was very much focused on kind of like, well, look, we've got a chatbot, or look, we've got this assist feature, and getting into much more actionability, much more autonomous AI work. Ali, I've had the pleasure of working with you for years, and sometimes whether it's been one day, 1 week, or 1 year since I was last with you, it seems like the world always changes between the times we get to sit together in a room.
So true.
What is some of the biggest, maybe one of the biggest shifts you've seen just this year in terms of that transition from assist to action?
Yeah. One thing that hasn't changed is your astute observations, Seth, and getting to the core of the problem, So thank you for that. The shift towards greater autonomy brings with it the need for greater governance. So you need to balance autonomy and governance in a way that when you're taking action, you're giving agency to an agent to take action. That's a big deal. Are you sure that agent will actually take the action you wanted it to? Here's $100, go do whatever you want with it. No, I'm gonna give you $30, go have lunch with it, agent. That's what you wanted to do, the guardrails. So what I think are three things that are important are the adherence to policy, whether they are technology policy or business policy, so policy adherence. The other is agents can get into contentious situations where they conflict with one another. Yeah. They will. They're little minions running around, they need a supervisor in the playground. So resolving those contentions, conflict resolution, this is something that in game theory we've had for years. And then thirdly, consensus building. This is something that, in every meeting, that's what we do, right? In this panel, we're trying to achieve some form of vectorization of consensus in one direction. So consensus building, conflict resolution, policy adherence, those three things are key things we need to up the ante on as we go from just inspiration to generate an image or get some output to taking action with the agents. Yeah. So that agentic action has along with it the guardrails that we just described. And if we move in the direction of autonomy, we need more of that.
Sure. John, I have the distinct pleasure of knowing a lot about the work that ServiceNow is doing, and I thought I could throw a question to you in terms of just how is ServiceNow using Gemini, using AI in general to really help, automate an organization taking an action to remediate a back office issue with a server, to helping fulfill a complex supply chain request? Like, how is ServiceNow empowering their customers through AI to solve these problems?
Yeah, we to think of ourselves, if you sort of strip what I believe, pretty uniquely do down to its bare essentials, we're a work execution hub. And it may be slightly unpopular to say this, but not all the work that we execute is stochastic at all. It's great news that almost every customer is introducing some element of that into their sort of execution memory space, but it's still very much the exception, in my opinion, rightly so. And again, back to using the right tool for the right job. But having said that, I'm really proud of, and not just because I happen to be in a Google Next conference, but like authentically, really proud of what we've already built together across multiple dimensions. So just as one representative example, when a sentient human being is interacting with a digital asset, they need a front door, whatever the modality of interaction is. We happen to have a front door. Clearly, we want to maximize usage and ubiquity of our front door. But again, in the spirit of meeting customers where they are, we've delivered just, in my opinion, a fantastic integration with Google Workspace, as well as with Gemini Enterprise, that treats it as a first-class citizen spoke, taking advantage of the ServiceNow Work Execution Hub. There's no private APIs, like everything our own front door, ServiceNow Employee Works can access, whether they be flows, derived insights, which is ServiceNow data brought together to generate incremental insights for AI, playbooks for those of you who are ServiceNow customers, et cetera. All those goodies are equally exposed to Gemini Enterprise in the way they are to ServiceNow Employee Works. So that's thing one. We already talked about the zero-copy connector between our workflow data fabric, which is how we execute on data reachability, and Google BigQuery. The third I'll talk about, which I have to say, incredibly excited about, is if I think about Google post the full integration of Wiz, there is tremendous opportunity that we have to collectively defend as the threats that we're all subjected to become just unbelievably real and exploitable at machine speed. So I dream of a world, and I don't think it's that far away, where we can take Google's increasingly unique asset data gravity, combine that with our existing asset data gravity, and then combine that with incremental security signal all up, and use that as a way to autonomously remediate potential vulnerabilities before they actually become vulnerabilities. Because pre-compilation, we can identify multiplicities of code that, when brought together, could actually create a vulnerability. So how do you get ahead of it and actually execute on remediation before it even becomes a workflow? So those are just 3 representative examples of both delivered as well as in-flight innovation that we're working on with Google to make the agentic era safe and compliant.
Thank you. Andy, one of the things that fascinates me is technology moves so fast, and as technology companies, we tend to move with it, evolve with it, push new products out there. How are we going to pitch them? How are we going to frame them? And then how are we going to go all tell our customers about them? I'm actually curious about your perspective of the customer lens back in terms of, I know your role, you spend a lot of time with Workday customers, and for a CFO, a CHRO, how has this agentic shift changed how they actually view enterprise software? And I'd love to have you take that one.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it varies so widely from place to place or industry to industry and from individual. The most annoying questions I get are, aren't you just going to be vibe coded out of existence? And I've yet to meet a CFO that really wants to vibe code the general ledger, or somebody that wants to vibe code California payroll. It would be cool if they could. I wish we could. So that is pretty easy to talk about. But it really, I think, because they're on the hook, these officers, they have to sign for the validity of the data which is in their organization. They really want to, they're doing this balance where I want to trust and I want AI to do as much as possible for the personas in my org, because a lot of it, truly, the activities don't add value. The output just adds value. So they want to use agents as much as possible, but they want to have the confidence when they're looking at it that they can trust it. If an agent is 95% accurate, that sounds really good. But that means you're 5% wrong, and that's the definition of materiality in financial statements. So that's absolutely unacceptable. So they're striving to understand, how can we put these things on rails? How can we make the agents so narrow, so well evaluated, so tested that way they can trust them?
Wonderful, thank you. Ali, what's a customer pattern that you're beginning to see that differentiates a AI project that is stuck in silo, like demo silo or pilot silo, and one that actually kind of escapes that hold and actually becomes something of value that can be measured and kind of applied for an organization?
Yeah. I think you've hit on the crux of one of the reasons why prototypes don't make it into production, the proverbial discussion. I think one of the fallacies today is that everything is about tokenomics, about how many tokens we expend, et cetera. I think the outcome-based metrics of ROI are going to be determinant of where the direction of the industry goes and the direction and the livelihood of a project within an organization. If this project A is going to provide ROI to the organization, measurable ROI, and therefore it's outcome-based. It's not like, oh, isn't it cool that we can do X? Great, that is cool, but what can you do with it to benefit the business? How can you measure that? And not only that, it's more about, will it drive a tangible outcome?
Yeah.
So I think driving the thinking from tokenomics and how many tokens we spend to an outcome-based ROI or OKR is going to be definitively important in measuring the success of a prototype going into production. That's the technical/business side. One last thing I will say is a lot of the barriers are non-technical. As soon as
majority of, I would
right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't get the CISO involved, if you don't get the CTO involved, if you don't get the forward deployed engineers involved, initially, early on, the project will appear to be successful, and then it will dip because all these very valid questions are going to be asked. Is it secure? Does it comply with the enterprise standards? Have we tested it in production? Is it scalable? So these questions arise early on, and we need to deal with these questions early on. So one of the ways to deal with these questions is to build it on this is very self-serving next statement, by the way, anticipating that. If you build it on a platform that is truly, you can build, scale, govern, and optimize on the platform, then you have much more leeway in experimentation and moving towards the fulfillment of business needs and OKRs than just experimenting with technology.
Wonderful.
And that platform is the Gemini Enterprise agent platform.
You're allowed to be a little self-serving at a Google conference. It's okay.
Sales guy. Sales guy.
Yeah. Andy, from the context of managing people and money, I mean, I know Workday, you guys focus on that theme a lot. Where do you see the most immediate ROI? How do you see this application of agents begin to scale for your customers?
Sure. The easiest, most obvious one is the self-service agents. People have so people whose system of work is not Workday. You're an individual contributor, you're a manager. I need to take PTO next Thursday. Great, self-service agent can answer it. You don't need to figure out the UI. I need to start the performance reviews for my team. I haven't thought about it since last year. I don't know where to do it in Workday. People do not like our user experience. They call it bureaucracy incarnate, and I hate to tell them, but you guys had a bureaucracy. You asked us to incarnate it, so I'm not sure why you're mad about that. AI agents for that population can totally make that entire layer evaporate.
Sure.
Gemini is a perfect tool to even be able to expand beyond just those domains around people and money and have a broader experience. So I think those are the easy ones. And then it's looking at the personas, like, do you do payroll? Do you do accounting? We have this vision for like lights out accounting, where it's like you can essentially always be closed because agents are looking and reading the policy of every single invoice, every journal entry, the policy that's behind it, the individual contracts with vendors. You could never do that without agents. There's no value in those things aside from being right. That's where people are excited about it. And then you can have an entire persona that's being done by an agent.
Sure, sure.
And also, if I can just make a comment, I think token is a terrible metric for performance. It's like, when I hear about data centers being built and they're measuring them in watts, I'm like, that's like measuring my team's performance by weight. It's not a useful, it's easy to measure.
Yes.
But that's not a good metric.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
John, for ServiceNow, where are you seeing that ROI come in for IT operations? I mean, you and I talk a lot about industry examples as well, maybe there. Where are you seeing ServiceNow really seeing that ROI begin to scale?
If I look across all of the workloads, again, combination of agentic and deterministic, that my FDE team has successfully pushed in production, all of them have as a lowest common denominator exactly what Dr. Ali described, which is in fact, we have an internal term for this, Seth. It's called a tech win, and a tech win equals a completed build rolled out into production plus enough telemetry arising from that tech build running in production to validate the expected value metrics. Until that's completed, the FDE team can't leave. Poor things. So we just keep them there until we achieve that goal. Sometimes it takes 6 weeks, sometimes it takes 5 months, but that's a North Star. So I think that's clarifying, but if I then double click on what are the representative use cases and enabling technologies across which we've achieved tech wins, I think there's a couple of patterns that are beginning to form. It may not be very popular to say this, but honestly, almost every initiative of that ilk has a labor cost reduction or avoidance element to it. It's just a fact. I don't know if that pattern will repeat over time, but that's very clearly what the data is telling us right now. Another dimension of pattern that's worth sharing is the power of multimodality, and that's actually a dimension across which Gemini shined. You did not pay me to say that, like legitimately.
I promise you I didn't.
We are seeing this for real across our prospect and our customer base. Customers are moving beyond just evaluating, and they're moving towards real production workloads that take advantage of voice as a first-class citizen. I'll give one hard example that's stuck in my head right now. There's not a public reference, but there's a European airline that's based in Central Europe, and so by definition, the population they serve consists of people who natively speak Croatian, Slovenian, German, Serbian, Russian, all of the Nordic languages, French, Arabic, etc. And they want their customer service desk to interact with the customer fulfillment agent in that natural language. So being able to take advantage of native voice models where you avoid the traditional hop of speech, to text, to prompt, to model, and I won't go through the whole thing. Just makes it so much more natural and low latency, reduces errors, and then most importantly, speeds up the rate at which the underlying context graph learns from historical execution flows, because the actual mode of interaction with the agent is, how do I put this, is not going through unnecessary hops prior to the LLM decision trace being generated. Forgive me if that's going into too much detail, but we're seeing a lot of customers who are getting one multimodal project into production, and once they're successful with that, they're replicating that pattern east to west across the business. Back office, security, risk, sales, service, you name it. So those are kind of some of the patterns that we're seeing.
Sure. I want to transition the conversation to security, but security is kind of just a broad label. Really, within security, there's everything from compliance to governance to auditability to risk to mitigation to all of those things. Ali, in this new agentic world, and you're working with so many of our customers, not just ServiceNow and Workday, how is this transition? It's introducing new challenges and risks. Like, how are enterprises, from your lens and your experience, what are some advice or some things that you're seeing working well for these organizations to evolve with that risk?
Yeah. One of the things we're seeing is the proliferation of agents. Just as in the era of service-oriented architecture, AKA microservices, the proliferation of services happened. And agents are now proliferating, tools are proliferating. Controlling that proliferation, I don't know if control is the right word, but monitoring that proliferation by giving agents identity so that an agent can't just do whatever it wants. You're giving agency deliberately, you're giving role-based access control to an agent. You can do these things, you can apply these tools under these circumstances, and I'm giving you agency for the following 5 days or whatever. So agent identity is a key construct. Once you have an agent identity, you need to advertise what the agent can do in an agent card. That agent card then can't be willy-nilly everywhere. It used to be you would find it in someone's JSON file. Yeah. Where can we locate that across the enterprise? As we empower people to make more and more agents, the chaos will just ensue. So we've put all these things in an agent registry. So you can register agents and tools in that registry. They have very specific identities. And you can have an agent gateway, which basically determines where that call goes. If there's an invocation to the agent through the actual JSON parameters that are its model card. I'm an agent that can do loan servicing. I'm using a use case outside of our current domain. If I'm going to do loan servicing, which type of loan and where do I go in order to fulfill that loan? Is it a home equity line of credit? Is it a student loan? Is it a commercial loan? Etc. So these various things may require different kinds of agents. And each of those agents need role-based access control. From that gateway, you need to control the LLMs so that the prompt injection attacks, exfiltration attacks don't happen. So we've put model armor behind that agent gateway so that you can control these things in a palatable way so that you can get the business done, but not necessarily worry too much about what happens from a security posture perspective. So net, agent identity, giving it role-based access control, consolidating it in a registry, putting in a gateway so calls come through that gateway so you can monitor and control it. We're not necessarily constraining that people build agents. We're just saying, let's govern how agents are put together, discovered, and used so they don't go off the rails.
Sure.
Is it okay if I comment on that?
Absolutely.
Just real briefly, I mean, I absolutely agree with you, Dr. Ali, that reflects current state. I do dream of a world where systems of all sorts don't have permanent privileges. I just think that in the same way that Active Directory became one of the dominant mechanisms by which we controlled access, as we evolved from, I'm actually old enough to remember client-server, as we evolved from client-server to web, I do think we need a new permissions architecture for the agentic era. And what I dream about, and we don't have the tech, I don't know if any of you has the tech, but I do dream about a world that's powered by a zero privilege world. Just don't give anybody access. Don't give any system access, like period. by definition, it reduces the attack surface by orders of magnitude. And when there's a just-in-time need for access to be provided to Seth, to an agentic workload, to a deterministic workload, now this is the science fiction part. You need a suitably performant service that's taking advantage of all the SOPs to actually grant that access ephemerally and remove that access at the moment that it's not needed anymore. I think that's a North Star to aim for. Like, even if we don't get there, it's like aim for the moon, get to the sky. And that's a world that I hope all of us vendors can align on in principle and then just compete on implementation.
Sure. No, I mean, and that type of vision, I mean, I'm speaking for myself here. I think that is so important at this time as we are moving so fast. Having a North Star and a vision is about where something like that should be headed is key. Maybe in the present, John, how is ServiceNow and how do you guys think about this security, this risk, this auditability? You and I talk about this so much. It's so paramount today. How, you guys, the platform that you guys deliver to customers, how are you helping them manage the today of that problem?
Across the security dimension?
Sure,
Seth?
and the governance and all of that, right?
Yeah. So we really thought deeply about how best to take advantage of the dimensions across which customers already trust us to sort of build a next generation architecture for agentic. So if you think about ServiceNow across most of our customers, we're in almost every case the source of IT asset data gravity. So then the question was, how do we become more credible to the CISO, having already established a reasonable amount of market dominance across that dimension? So the natural extension of that was a CISO, by the nature of their job, and I don't mean this negatively, they're paranoid, they want to own and control what provides them with protection, and rightfully so, right? It's part of the job description. So they don't want to take advantage of fit-for-purpose tech that somebody else owns. So even an IT asset graph, or whatever you want to call it, is not suitable for cyber requirements, actually both technically and organizationally. I don't want to get into the technical reasons, but there's many. So one of the first transactions that we've done in our history, and actually the largest transaction in ServiceNow's history, we acquired a company called Armis. That transaction actually closed this week. And so Armis is now a part of ServiceNow. Armis represents for us a cyber asset graph. Our job is, through federation, to keep that cyber asset graph in sync with our IT asset graph. But you can think about that cyber asset graph as the place where CISOs can trust things that affect their security, be it pre-compiled stuff like code, connected assets of all types, IoT, OT, medical devices, cloud, etc. This is the dimension across which, by the way, I see amazing partnership potential with Google, especially post your Wiz acquisition. But to wrap very quickly, it's a cyber asset graph dimension. It's the access graph dimension. There, we also acquired a company called Vesa. You can think about them as a way to map a very low-level CRUD operations level of atomicity, who and what has access to what, and then very importantly, who and what had access to what on the day that some malfeasance may have occurred 18 months ago. So that's the second dimension. The third dimension is existing decision context. Like, what are your SOPs? What are your rules, your regulations, your guidelines, and the kind of decisions that humans will ordinarily make, just given the organizational context? How do you encode that using technologies that would enable agentic and other workloads to make decisions based on that? So we're kind of calling that our security core. Now we want to partner with third parties for context, things that don't belong in that core. Human resources data to help us identify insider threats. Threat intelligence, where Google is best in class. If there's people in the room from CrowdStrike or whoever from Microsoft, we'll capture endpoint data from those folks. But the combination of all of that is what drives pre-breach or proactive, as well as post-breach security and risk outcomes. The last thing to say is the big unlock now is how do we do all of the remediation at machine speed? People are making those claims. I haven't yet seen shipping supported tech that can truly remediate potential vulnerabilities at machine speed. But again, as it relates to North Stars, that's one of the goals that we're aiming for.
Wonderful, thank you. Andy, HR data, financial data, some of the most sensitive. How is Workday and Google partnering to help empower customers to kind of begin taking advantage of this shift?
Yeah. So briefly back to security and identity for agents. It sounds like a complicated problem. We didn't think about it too hard. Honestly, we look at these agents like digital workers. We already have a way to onboard and manage and have visibility and understanding about workers. We just added another dimensionality for agents. And agents have all kinds of unique things that are unique attributes about them. And they operate with delegated authority from a worker. Yeah. So whatever the worker can do, the agent can do on their behalf. And we audit and track. This was done with Andy's authority by this Gemini agent that's custom. And it may have a limited scope of what I can do. I don't want it to do everything I can do. So we didn't think about it too hard, and it's working very well. But you get other things like observability. You can see the internal reasoning steps if the agent will expose it, and you can log it either within Gemini's platform or within Workday. I wish I could crack open the heads of employees and see what their internal reasoning was before they decided to submit that expense report for that strip club. But you can with an agent, which is great.
Wish I could do that with my kids, I tell you.
Yeah, it's unplumbable depths. But we've been thinking about security around that data for a long time. And I think that if you look at it that way and you say these agents are operating with authority of a worker, a lot of that question about how they need to run goes away.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have 3 minutes left. I'm gonna actually call an audible here. We're gonna do a rapid fire here to end. What is one thing, John, that you would recommend a customer stuck in the pilot silo of AI?
One thing they should do?
One thing they should do, or one piece of advice?
Gosh, man. Dr. Ali, you want to go first? I'll think about
Ali,
that for
go.
a second.
No pressure.
It's a one thing.
Just vibe code everything.
No.
No, don't do that. Give it to OpenClaw. No, don't do that. Don't do that. So avoid just throwing things at AI and standing back where we're mentally being more incapacitated through coding or interaction. Make sure you put the zero trust guardrails around things that are autonomous agents like OpenClaw. There's a blog I have, Google it please, that people have come to me, can I do OpenClaw? Yeah, maybe, but here are 10 guidelines of how you can control it. Safely. So the net of it is, as we go into greater autonomy, don't relinquish the human side to agents. That's my
Love it.
human
Andy.
aspect.
I love it. I say think about how this thing will live in production. A lot of prototypes get built easy. Don't think about making dinner. Think about running a restaurant. And if you think about a restaurant, you have a different frame. But build those things. Make a dozen of them and assume that 10 of them are going to fail, but you'll get 2 that you would never have gotten otherwise.
I like that. I'd say go slowly in order to go quickly. So for those sort of first or second workloads that actually make it into production, governance is such an overused word. Like, what does that really mean? Like, it's stuff like ensure that your organizational guardrails are actually encoded and are truly enforceable. It's stuff like one of the most surprisingly popular subsets. We have a technology called AI Control Tower, but it's not about pitching AICT. I think the thing that generally surprised me, I've been with ServiceNow for about a year. So AI Control Tower discovers, it inventories, and then it does what I would call the magical stuff. By far the most popular subsets of AI Control Tower is just discovery. Because it's the plumbing, it's the foundational stuff. Like, you can't govern or control what you can't see. So I think whether it's AI Control Tower or something else, just having the chassis that enables you to then go quickly in a manner that's compliant with internal policy and external regulations is a prereq.
Wonderful. So I have to break one promise that we're running out of time. We're not going to do Q&A, but I have a good alternative. So first, John, Ali, Andy, thank you so much, both for your partnership with Google Cloud, but for your presence and sharing your thoughts here with the audience. It is a fantastic partnership all around with both of your companies, so thank you. They are not the only ServiceNow and Workday people here at Google Cloud Next this week. Please, I urge everyone here to learn more, to better understand how these companies are helping unlock the power of AI with Google. Please visit their booths. in the expo hall on the first floor, and there are teams and teams of people willing to answer questions, go deep, show you demos, and really help you unlock this vision that they've painted for you today. So again, thank you, the three of you, so much. Thanks you, the audience, as well, and thank you for coming to Google Next.